Hello everyone. First of all, I just want to thank you for all the support you have shown me in the previous videos, and if you're enjoying these videos and you're finding it useful, then I highly recommend enrolling into my Tailwind CSS course. So far we have over 15,000 students and we're getting good reviews about this course. So I highly recommend checking it out if you want to learn Tailwind CSS in detail. So if you want to enroll into this course, you can find the link in the description. Hey guys, so now we're going to be working on the services section. This is going to have all the services that you provide. In our case, we're going to have 3 services. So let's get started with it. So first of all, let's have a new div. Let's make a new section first. So we're going to give it an ID of services. That way we can basically navigate to it. And for the classes, we're going to make the background grey with a shade of 50. So we want just a tint of grey. And we're also going to give it a padding top of 20 and a padding bottom of 28 and a padding horizontal of 8. So basically padding left and right of 8. Yeah. And inside this section, we're going to have a div that we will style it using. So we'll use max width 6x large, and we will do the margin horizontal auto, so it will basically center it. Now inside this div that we have just made, we're going to make a new div that will basically hold the content of like the title of this section, which is the services and like here's what I offer. So this div is going to be just going to center this text, so it's going to center the title, and yeah, so we'll just do div class text center. And inside this, we're going to have a h1 called services, which is the title of the section, and right under it will be a paragraph tag, and we'll say, okay, here's what I offer. And now let's see how that looks. Let's refresh. Okay, beautiful. We need to definitely style these h1 and paragraph. Okay, so for the h1, let's make it bigger using text 6XL. Okay, that looks good. And let's also make the text gray 300. So it's less dark. Okay, no, that's very light. Let's make it 800. Okay, that's much better. Now for the paragraph, let's just give it some more padding between them because it's quite stuck to it. So we'll do padding top of 2. And let's refresh. Okay, perfect. Now under this div that holds the h1 and paragraph, right under it, we're going to have a new div, and this is going to hold the content of the services section. So basically the is going to have the cards that each card represents a service. So yeah, let's do that now. So for this div, it's going to have a margin top of 24, so we basically have some margin between the title and the content. And we're going to use the grid class, so we're going to be using a grid, and we're going to have one column, so grid calls 1. And for medium devices, we're going to have 2 columns, so grid calls 2, and for large devices, we're going to have 3 columns. Okay, so the way the grid system works is, so if we have let's say grid calls 3, and let's say we have 9 elements inside this grid, then what it will do, it would basically show the elements in a 3x3 fashion. So it would have a grid of 3 rows and 3 columns. Now, 3 items in a row, and it will have 3 columns. We also need some gap between the items, so let's use gap 20. That way the grid will ensure that there's a gap between each item using the spacing of 20. And inside this div, we want to have a new div inside it, which will basically hold the, we'll have like a nice card effect with a gradient. So to do this, well, we're going to have a root div first of all before we actually get into the details. So let's make this root div using relative positioning. So we're just going to have a div with the relative position, and inside this div we will have the div that will have the gradient basically. So we'll make a new div and we will have absolute positioning, and we will use we'll give it a z axis of 10. That way it will be behind the content that we're going to put on it. It will be behind the card, and after we make it after we give it z10, we'll do inset 0. That way it will be, so what inset does is we'll do top 0, left 0, right 0, and bottom 0. It basically will make sure that there's no spacing between all the sides. So it's basically it has no spacing between all the sides. And then we will use BG gradient to right. So we'll use a background gradient to right. That way the gradient is going from left to right. And again, we're going to be using the custom colors that we have defined in the style section, and we will use from primary to secondary. So we're going to have 2 colors that the gradient would work on, and we're going to also use shadow large so that there's some shadow. And so now let's also give it transform, so we can apply the skew and the rotation and give it that nice effect. So we'll use transform, and then after the transform class we'll use negative skew of vertical 6. So we're going to use a negative skew vertical of 6, and then for small devices we're going to remove the skew. We only want it on other devices that are not small, and for small devices we're actually just going to rotate 6 instead of using skew. And we're also going to give it a border radius, like a decent border radius, using rounded large for small devices only. Now after this div we will have a new div, and this is going to be relatively positioned, and we will use this div. This div is going to be the container of the service, so this is going to be like a card for each service. So we want this to be on top of the gradient, so we have to use Z20 to make it on top, because the other one is Z10, so the higher the Z index, the Z axis will basically bring it forward. Now we will also make it white, background color of white, using BG white, and we will make the height full, so using H full. It will basically match the parent's height, so we'll take as much height as you can. And we will do rounded medium, so the border radius will be medium, and we'll give it a shadow of medium as well. And for the horizontal padding, we'll give it a horizontal padding of 10, and for vertical padding we will do PY12. Now inside this div we're going to have a now let's see how that looks before we continue. Okay, so let's refresh. As you can see, just like I explained to you, it looks very nice. So now we need to add the content inside it, so we're going to have an image first. So first of all I'm going to have an image for the content. So right inside this card that we have just done, we're going to have an image. Now this image is going to be styled using rounded top medium, so that way it's going to have only the top side rounded for the border radius, and it's going to be rounded using the medium levels, not going to be rounded too much. And now let's put in the source. So again, you guys can use whatever images you want, but if you want to use the images that I have used, you can find them in the text file. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the first image from the notes. And now let's see how that actually looks. Alright, so we definitely need to style it. We want to basically let's go back to Chrome. So we want to stick it to the top, so that the border radius actually matches the top one as well. It's going to look very nice. It's going to look like it's on the edge.